Hello and good afternoon. Today is Thursday, October 13th, 2021. I'm Devin Schwetman, and this is News OSU. A story that has made headlines around the world will now have an impact at home. Over 100 Afghan refugees will relocate to Stillwater in late October and early November. These refugees fled Afghanistan after U.S. troops withdrew in August. As you may remember, the Taliban reasserted its control over Afghanistan after the U.S. left. Refugees in Stillwater will be housed and supported by Catholic Charities and Our Daily Bread. Refugees are also expected to be housed in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. In other news, Wally Funk made her landing in Stillwater this past week. The astronaut is not only an OSU alum, but was also the oldest woman in space. Channing Nesmith has more.
Wally Funk graduated from OSU and was part of the Flying Aggies. I got to sit in with one of them to talk about how Wally has influenced and inspired them to do what they do.
She's just an incredible person. Every time I talked to her, she would always say, "Don't sit on the negative, just keep moving forward."
Tara Siraki is part of the Flying Aggies, and she said Wally is such an inspiration to her because
she said that NASA wouldn't let her go to the ISS, but Blue Origin took her to space, so she's always finding ways to circumvent the system and make her own path. And as a woman pilot, that's pretty inspirational.
Siraki said that only 8% of certified pilots are women. She says Wally's motto of "make it happen" is something that she has always aspired to be. Wally's story started when she was just 2 years old.
I went over to a DC-3 to turn the nut to see if it was tight enough to fly. Mother said she's going to fly.
Wally Funk is an inspiration to many people, but she said that her inspiration came from the spirit of the Talus Mountains.
The spirit will tell you what to do today in your heart.
Wally Funk had the opportunity to go to space with Jeffrey Bezos in July of this year. She is the oldest woman to have ever traveled into space. She said her thoughts during takeoff were,
"We went up and it was black and I got out of my seat and I floated around a little bit."
As she headed back to Earth, her landing was flawless, and she shared her thoughts on accomplishing her biggest life goal.
It was just great knowing that I had gotten into space and I wanted to for so many years, because I still want to go to International Space Station. Still want to get up there.
For News OSU, I'm Channing Nesmith.
You may have noticed that a lot of roads in Stillwater are full of potholes and uneven pavement. Confused about why a Big 12 college town has such poor infrastructure, I went to the city to figure out more. We've all experienced Stillwater's bumpy and flood-prone roads. Is help on the way, or are we doomed to endure pothole-induced whiplash forever? Every Stillwater resident quickly learns to avoid certain roads and intersections, especially when it gets wet outside. Maple, Duck, Main, and many other streets are notorious for being extremely unpleasant and even dangerous to drive on, especially during storm season.
Especially close to campus, they are really bad. I have to take the back roads really slow and be really careful because I'm nervous that I'm gonna pop a tire or something.
But why do they seem so bad, even by Okie standards? I went to the city to seek some answers.
Yeah, we ain't got enough money.
Right.
So how do we decide what we're going to do? We use an asset management system we call pavement management, but it's an asset management system. So every 5 years, we evaluate.
But even with a plan in place, it may seem as if nothing is happening to fix the seemingly insurmountable problems residents face keeping their cars intact and their bodies untossed around. If you want to keep up with the city's streetwork plans,
Stillwater.org, we have pages of current projects, and then we have the 5-year plan.
You can also take part in City Council and Planning Commission meetings every Monday and Tuesday in person at the council chambers or online via YouTube livestream. For News OSU, I'm Devin Schwetman. Since the beginning of the semester, COVID cases have gone down significantly, from nearly 500 active cases in early September. Here are the current numbers. The number of tests distributed went up, and the number of positive cases went up on campus as well this week. According to the UHS COVID dashboard, there are a total number of 32 positive cases this week and 456 tests distributed. While slightly higher than last week's numbers, these numbers are significantly lower than they were for last month. Between sweater weather and short season, our closets tend to fill up. Online shopping has made it easier to find trendy and affordable clothes at the click of a button. Jolisa Lee discovered how harmful the fashion industry is to our planet and tells us ways to ditch fast fashion and create a more sustainable closet.
Fast fashion brands like Shein, ASOS, and H&M have three components from a consumer's perspective. They are cheap, trendy, and disposable. While brands like these seem harmless and convenient, the effect they have on the environment is devastating.
It's the second polluter, just right next to the oil industry. So when it comes to the environmental impact of this, fashion industry and fashion businesses, it's very strong.
Despite the damaging effects of the fast fashion industry, there are many ways that we as consumers can make a difference. Carson Croker is a senior fashion merchandising major with a passion for sustainable brands and a flair for secondhand finds. She shared with me how she makes sustainable fashion choices.
I thrift, and then about the other 15%, I do a lot of research.
Besides shopping secondhand, Carson says there are other things we can do to create a more sustainable closet, like establishing our own personal style by taking an old clothing item and changing it up.
I like to revamp it, and I like to cut it up, and I like to sew it back together and make a piece, that I would love now and that is on trend. So it's totally possible to make old pieces new again.
Cheaply made outfits are also discarded after a few years. Fast fashion plays into the idea that outfit repeating is a faux pas and that you need to stay relevant by sporting the latest looks. This forms a key part of the toxic system of overproduction and consumption that has made the fashion industry a top polluter.
And that does not make sense to me, because clothes should be worn. They're supposed to be experienced in. They take you places, I wear my shoes until they're raggedy, until they break, because that's what clothes were intended to be.
The potential for change in the fashion industry is possible. It could lead us to a fashion future that is better for workers, the environment, and even your wardrobe. For News OSU, I'm Jolisa Lee.
Thanks, Jolie. Stillwater is full of thrift stores that will help you leave less of a carbon footprint. While the boutiques in Stillwater are local businesses in need of support, here are some resale shops that are also great assets to our community if anyone needs the push to thrift. This is just some of a handful that are in our community. Here is News OSU's weekend weather forecast. The high on Friday is 68 with a low of 57. Saturday, the high is 72 with a low of 39. And the weekend will end on Sunday with a high of 75 and a low of 45.
The Oklahoma State Cowboys have found their stride as we dive into Week 7 of the college football season. 5-0, unblemished in Big 12 play, the Pokes take the trip south to Austin this Saturday with high hopes of taking down the Longhorns. Michael Zarales provides mid-season grades for a few important Cowboys.
The Oklahoma State Cowboys are an undefeated 5-0 this season. With 7 games left, it's time for a mid-season checkpoint. Today I'm going to tell you why Spencer Sanders, Malcolm Rodriguez, and Mike Gundy earned the grades on this chalkboard. Let's start with the signal caller, quarterback Spencer Sanders. Offensively, the Cowboys have shown flashes of greatness this season. When things have gone wrong, usually Sanders is to blame. Sanders understands the finger pointing.
A lot of it has to do with me, and I'll take responsibility for it.
Sanders has earned a C- so far this year. In his best game against Kansas State, Sanders had 22 completions for 344 yards and 2 touchdowns. That being said, Sanders also has had some not-so-impressive games. Versus Baylor, Sanders threw 3 interceptions, and the Cowboys were lucky to sneak away with a 24-14 victory. Versus Boise State, Sanders completed just 6 passes for 81 yards in a 21-20 victory. Sanders needs to take care of the ball to keep the Cowboys undefeated.
Who scored that touchdown? Was that 20?
Number 20, otherwise known as Malcolm Rodriguez, has undoubtedly earned an A so far this season. OSU's star middle linebacker leads the Big 12 in tackles with 54. Defensive coordinator Jim Knowles jokingly asked that question as Malcolm Rodriguez has been doing it all for his defense. Listed at 5'11", 225 pounds, Rodriguez is not the typical middle linebacker, but where he lacks in size, he makes up for in speed and football IQ. Rodriguez and the Cowboys defense will need to keep being the strength of this team.
Obviously a great win for us. We got away with another.
That quote from Gundy summarizes the Cowboys season. After beating Missouri State by 5 and sneaking by Tulsa, Oklahoma State fans were wondering if this team would even make a bowl game. 3 weeks later, the Cowboys are 5-0, ranked number 12, with their last 2 wins coming against ranked teams. This is why I'm giving Gundy a B+. For News OSU, I'm Michael Zaralis.
The Cowboys find themselves undefeated, with Week 7 on the horizon for the first time since 2015 and for the 5th time in the Mike Gundy era. As for the Longhorns, head coach Steve Sarkisian and company find themselves 4-2, the most recent hiccup coming at the Red River Showdown a weekend ago against the Oklahoma Sooners. Let's take a look. The Longhorns jumped out to an early 2-score advantage, courtesy of 2 touchdowns within the first 2 minutes of the game. This 75-yard connection between Texas quarterback Casey Thompson and wide receiver Xavier Worthy put the Longhorns up by 7. From the Sooner 2-yard line, Heisman Watch Longhorns running back Bijan Robinson finds the end zone, pushing the Horns out to a 2-score advantage. Both sides got it done on the ground in this one. Each running back turned in more than 100 yards rushing on 20 or more carries. The Longhorns' bright spot was the ability for junior quarterback Casey Thompson to toss 5 touchdowns after taking over for freshman quarterback Hudson Card. The Sooners prevailed in this one, despite turning to freshman quarterback Caleb Williams, who turned in 2 touchdowns over 200 yards through the air. It was the typical yearly shootout between the two rivals, something the Longhorns have been accustomed to. The Longhorns' inconsistent play throughout the second half made all the difference.
And then ultimately, our inability offensively to get positive yards on 1st and 10. I can't remember who asked me last week what's going to be one of the keys to the game. I had mentioned win on 1st down.
The Cowboys and Longhorns have had nearly opposite paths leading into this weekend's contest. Let's take a look at the Longhorns' least and most impressive performances up to this point. We start in Week 2. This was a disappointing loss for a 15-ranked Texas football team. The defense gave up 40 points on 333 rushing yards, while the offense combined for 3 touchdowns, all on the ground. This is unacceptable if Texas wants to avoid its 2nd straight loss of the season this weekend. The most impressive outing for the Longhorns was the Red River Showdown game against Oklahoma. Even though it resulted in a loss, the Longhorns held their own against a talented Oklahoma team. Losing by 7 points proves that Texas can play competitive football with the 6th best team in the nation. As for the Cowboys' least and most impressive performances this season, we start in Week 1. Missouri State had a drive to tie the game late in the 4th quarter. The Oklahoma State defense has figured out how to limit opposing offenses since that game. In the Cowboys' latest contest, the ability to limit a Baylor offense, who just came off a grinded-out 31-29 victory over Iowa State the week prior, was a testament to the poised Pokes defense. The theme for Oklahoma State has been centered around the defense and winning the low-scoring games. The Longhorns are the opposite. When they win, they do it through their offensive attack, scoring more than 30 points in 5 of their first 6 games. The clash of styles collide this Saturday in Austin.
I don't prefer to not get in a shootout with them. They've done some of that with big plays, and they accomplished some of that Saturday with big plays.
The Cowboys look to make history this Saturday. A Cowboy win would mark the first time in school history OSU has beaten AP-ranked opponents in 3 consecutive games. We will have it covered, and we'll break it down next week.
That's all we have for today. Stay safe, and thank you for watching. For News OSU, I'm Devin Schwetman.